Have you ever felt it? That subtle shift in energy. The way her texts became shorter, the way her laughter didn't linger as long, the way she once leaned in, and now she leans away. One day, everything felt warm, close, connected. The next day, something changed. She didn't say anything was wrong. She didn't start a fight. She didn't accuse you. She just became distant, and that's the part that hurts the most. Because distance without explanation feels like rejection without closure. When a woman suddenly becomes distant, it rarely happens without reason. The shift may look sudden to you, but in her mind, it has likely been building quietly for weeks or even months. Emotional distance doesn't appear out of nowhere. It forms in silence, in small unnoticed moments, in unmet expectations, in words that weren't said, and in feelings that weren't validated. One of the most common reasons she becomes distant is emotional exhaustion. When a woman feels like she has been carrying the emotional weight of the relationship alone, she eventually gets tired. If she has been the one initiating conversations, planning time together, resolving conflicts, checking in on your feelings, and trying to keep the connection alive, she may begin to feel unbalanced. And when effort feels one-sided for too long, the heart slowly starts to pull back as a form of distance can also be the result of unmet emotional needs. Many men assume that if there are no arguments, everything must be fine. But silence is not always peace. Sometimes silence is disappointment that hasn't been voiced yet. If she has tried to express her needs before and felt unheard, dismissed, or misunderstood, she may eventually stop trying. Instead of repeating herself, she withdraws. Instead of fighting for attention, she observes. Instead of demanding change, she adjusts her expectations downward and creates space. Another reason she may have become distant is that something shifted in how safe she feels with you emotionally. Emotional safety is everything in a relationship. It's the freedom to express vulnerability without fear of judgment, mockery, or minimization. If she once opened up about her fears, insecurities, or past wounds and felt that you brushed them aside or responded defensively, a quiet wall may have begun to build. Women often test emotional safety subtly. They reveal small pieces first. If those pieces aren't handled gently, they stop revealing more. Sometimes, distance is a response to inconsistency. If your behavior has been unpredictable, warm one day, cold, the next, it creates confusion, and confusion creates anxiety. She may have started feeling unsure about where she stands with you. When affection, attention, or commitment fluctuates, it destabilizes trust, and when trust feels shaky, she might distance herself to regain a sense of control. There are also moments when she becomes distant because she is dealing with something internal that has nothing to do with you directly. Stress from work, family pressure, personal insecurities, or unresolved trauma can consume emotional energy. When a person feels overwhelmed, they often conserve their energy by retreating. It doesn't always mean she loves you less. It might mean she's struggling more than she has admitted. But here's something difficult to hear. Sometimes she becomes distant because her feelings have changed. Attraction is dynamic. Emotional connection requires maintenance. If she feels that the spark has faded, if conversations have become repetitive, if intimacy feels routine rather than intentional, she might start emotionally disengaging before physically leaving. Emotional detachment is often the first step before someone decides whether to stay or go. You might ask, why didn't she just tell me? And the answer is complex. Some women fear confrontation. Some don't want to hurt you. Some have tried to communicate before and felt it didn't lead anywhere productive. Others are still unsure of their own feelings and need space to figure them out. Distance can be a processing phase. Another hidden reason for distance is resentment. Resentment grows when small hurts accumulate without resolution. Maybe you forgot important dates. Maybe you dismissed something she was excited about. Maybe you made jokes that stung more than you realized. Maybe promises were made but not kept. Each instance alone may seem minor, but together they create emotional buildup. And resentment, when unspoken, turns into withdrawal. Sometimes she becomes distant because she feels unappreciated. Appreciation is fuel for connection. When she feels seen, valued, and acknowledged, she invests more deeply. But when effort goes unnoticed, she may begin to wonder if it even matters. A lack of gratitude can slowly erode warmth. There is also the possibility that she tested your emotional investment and felt uncertain about your long-term intentions. If she started thinking about the future and didn't see clear alignment, she might pull back to protect herself from deeper attachment. When a woman senses potential incompatibility, she often creates emotional distance before ending things completely. Jealousy and comparison can also create distance. If she feels compared to others, or if she senses that your attention is divided, even subtly through social media interactions or casual comments about other women, insecurity can quietly grow. And when insecurity grows, some women cling tighter, while others withdraw to avoid feeling vulnerable. Another angle to consider is communication style differences. You might process internally while she processes externally. You might think everything is fine because you aren't arguing. She might interpret your quietness as disinterest. Over time, misaligned communication styles can create emotional gaps, and if those gaps aren't addressed, distance forms. Sometimes distance is a test not in a manipulative way, but in a self-preserving way. She might subconsciously pull back to see if you notice, to see if you step forward, to see if you fight for connection or simply let it drift. When she withdraws and you remain passive, she may interpret that as confirmation that she cares more than you do. It's also possible that she feels she lost herself in the relationship. When someone invests deeply, sometimes they neglect their own identity, hobbies, friendships, and ambitions. If she starts feeling overly dependent or overly defined by the relationship, she may create distance to reclaim independence. This isn't always about leaving you. It can be about rediscovering herself. You also have to consider whether you've changed. Growth is natural, but not all growth happens in the same direction. If your priorities shifted, your values evolved, or your lifestyle changed significantly, she may feel less aligned. Emotional intimacy thrives on shared direction. When paths begin diverging, even subtly, the connection can feel strained. There's another uncomfortable possibility. She may feel emotionally neglected in subtle ways you didn't recognize. Emotional neglect doesn't require cruelty. It can simply mean being physically present but emotionally unavailable. If conversations stayed surface level, if you rarely asked deeper questions, if you avoided vulnerable discussions, she may have started feeling alone even while being with you. Distance can also stem from unresolved conflict. Not all fights end with closure. Sometimes issues are dropped without being truly resolved. The tension remains beneath the surface. And over time, unaddressed issues become emotional barriers. If intimacy has decreased, less physical affection, less eye contact, fewer meaningful conversations, that's often both a symptom and a cause of distance. Intimacy requires intentionality. Without it, relationships slowly cool down. She might not even consciously decide to pull away. It can happen gradually as habits replace effort. Another factor is expectations that were never clearly communicated. She may have imagined a certain level of commitment, romance, or emotional depth. If reality didn't match her expectations, disappointment could lead to quiet withdrawal. And because those expectations weren't fully expressed, you might not even know you were falling short. Fear plays a huge role too. If she started developing deeper feelings and felt uncertain about whether you felt the same, she might distance herself to avoid potential heartbreak. Sometimes pulling away is easier than risking rejection. It's important to understand that when someone becomes distant, they are often protecting themselves. Protection from disappointment, from pain, from feeling undervalued, from uncertainty. Distance is armor. Now the question becomes, what do you do? First, resist the urge to chase aggressively. Desperation rarely rebuilds connection. If she senses panic rather than calm strength, it may push her further away. Instead, respond with grounded curiosity. Ask her directly, without accusation, how she's feeling. Create a safe space for honesty. Second, reflect honestly on your own behavior. Not defensively, not self-critically, just honestly. Have you been present? Have you been consistent? Have you been attentive? Self-awareness is powerful. Third, give her room to speak without interrupting or immediately defending yourself. If she opens up about feeling unheard, your instinct might be to explain your perspective, but explanation isn't always what she needs first. She needs validation, understanding before solutions. Rebuilding connection requires emotional leadership. That doesn't mean control. It means being willing to initiate deeper conversations, to express vulnerability first, to set the tone for openness. It's also important to manage your own emotions during this phase. Her distance can trigger insecurity, fear, or anger in you. But reacting from those emotions can escalate the situation. Stay steady. Stay composed. Stability is attractive and reassuring. If her distance is due to personal stress unrelated to the relationship, your role shifts to supportive partner rather than problem solver. Offer help without smothering. Ask what she needs rather than assuming. If her feelings have genuinely changed, forcing closeness won't revive them. Sometimes distance is a sign that a chapter is ending, and while painful, it's better to confront that truth than live in denial. But here's something hopeful. Distance doesn't always mean the end. Sometimes it's a wake-up call. A signal that something needs attention. Many relationships grow stronger after a phase of distance because both people become more aware of what they could lose. The key is intentional effort. Small, consistent actions matter. Thoughtful messages, meaningful conversations, physical affection, active listening, reassurance without overpressing, presence without pressure. Ask yourself when the last time was that you genuinely surprised her with kindness. When was the last time you complimented her specifically, not generically? When did you last express gratitude for something she does? Reconnection often starts with simple reminders of why you chose each other. At the same time, respect her autonomy. If she asks for space, give it. Space given respectfully can build trust. Space resisted can create resentment. There's also a deeper lesson here about emotional attunement. Relationships require tuning in regularly, not just assuming everything is fine because there's no crisis. Checking in emotionally should be routine, not reactive. Understand that love isn't maintained by intensity alone. It's maintained by consistency. By showing up in small moments, by caring about the details of her day, by remembering what matters to her. And if you discover that her distance was rooted in something you genuinely overlooked, don't collapse into guilt. Growth matters more than perfection. What matters is whether you're willing to evolve. In some cases, her distance might reveal incompatibility that was always there, but masked by initial attraction. And while that realization hurts, it's valuable. Because staying in a misaligned relationship drains both people slowly. If she returns emotionally after you address the issue, don't treat it as a crisis narrowly avoided and then revert to old habits. Use it as a turning point. Relationships that survive distance often do so because both partners commit to higher emotional awareness. But if she continues to withdraw, despite your sincere effort, you must also protect your own dignity. Love should not feel like constant pursuit of someone who is walking away. Mutual effort is non-negotiable. The most powerful approach is balance. Care deeply, but don't beg. Communicate openly, but don't accuse. Offer reassurance, but don't overcompensate. Give space, but don't disappear. Sometimes the distance forces you to confront your own fears of abandonment. It pushes you to examine how much of your self-worth is tied to her affection. And in that reflection, you grow. Because here's the truth, you cannot control whether someone stays emotionally connected to you. You can only control the kind of partner you choose to be. If she became distant because she felt unseen, start seeing her. If she felt unheard, start listening. If she felt unappreciated, start acknowledging. If she felt uncertain, start being consistent. If she felt overwhelmed, start being supportive. And if she became distant because she's no longer aligned with you, then have the courage to accept that with grace. Distance is painful, but it's also information. It tells you something is shifting. Something needs attention. Something is either healing or breaking. The worst thing you can do is ignore it and hope it resolves itself. Emotional distance rarely disappears without intentional effort. Silence does not fix silence. So instead of asking, why did she suddenly change? Ask, what might I have missed? What might she be feeling that she hasn't fully expressed? And how can I respond with maturity rather than fear? Relationships are living dynamics. They breathe, they expand, they contract. Periods of closeness and distance can both be part of the journey. The difference between couples who survive those shifts and those who don't is emotional courage. Courage to ask difficult questions, courage to hear uncomfortable answers, courage to change behavior, courage to let go if necessary. If she once felt close and now feels far, don't panic, observe, reflect, communicate, adjust, and remember, sometimes her distance isn't about you losing her. It's about both of you being invited to grow. Whether that growth happens together or apart depends on what you both choose next.